record on this computer. All right, very good. So good morning, everyone. Thanks very much for coming along to this info session where we're going to tell you a little bit about our new accelerated Masters Engineering programs. For those of you that couldn't make it this morning, that messaged me on social media and other platforms, there'll be a recording posted so you can watch this video later on. And if you have any questions, you can always follow up. In fact, it's very likely that we'll do a second info session, given that there's a bit of interest for this degree. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the background of this degree so that you can understand where we're coming from, why we're doing it, and then explain to you how it's going to work. We'll show you some of the options, but also hope you guys can ask a lot of questions, because questions really allow us to delve into those details that we may not have in this presentation. So I haven't put together a formal presentation because you probably know that I hate putting together PowerPoint slides. But luckily enough, we did have an amazing design team put together an 8-page flyer, which we pride ourselves on. And in this flyer, you'll find all the information. So I'm going to present on this particular flyer, and then you guys can actually get a copy of this flyer later on to look at and sort of reference what I'm saying and going forth. There's also a landing page for this particular course, which I'm going to share with you guys now in the chat, just so you have it available to you. If you haven't already had a chance to look at it, it's pretty detailed because we try to put as much of the information from the flyer on the web page without suffocating you with unnecessary information. So a lot of the information that is related to master's courses at La Trobe in general, you'll find them on a separate link. But this particular link here will talk about this accelerated structure. And I think it's pretty detailed to start you off with. So I'm just going to share my screen with this flyer here, and then we can begin the formal part. So as you can see, we've called it Accelerated Masters. Essentially, we're allowing you to gain a master's degree, which is notionally a 240 credit course, so 2 years in 12 months. And there's various reasons for why we're doing it in this particular way. But from a historical point of view, when I started my undergraduate studies, there was something called concurrent degrees. And concurrent degrees were essentially a gateway for you to enroll into an undergraduate and a master's degree simultaneously. So that by the time you graduated in 5 years, you actually had a Bachelor of X engineering and a Master's of Y engineering, whatever that could be. And that was scrapped probably 10 years ago. It was definitely eight to 9 years ago, but possibly 10 years ago. It was a very good option, but the entry point was very high. So the students that were being accepted into this course had to have a very high ATAR score, or if they came from international institutions and high schools, they had to have the equivalent to that. So that was put aside. It's no longer available. But in the meantime, a few other things happened at other universities. So some of you are aware, University of Melbourne has gone to a completely different structure in terms of their undergraduate education. There's nothing wrong or right about it or anything like that. It's just different options. And it coincides more with what's being done in Europe in terms of engineering education, mainland Europe, not UK. So they've gone with a 3-year undergraduate Bachelor of Science degree, and then a concurrent master's degree, which is 2 years. So essentially, it's still a 5-year period in which you get your undergraduate and postgraduate degree, masters. So some people prefer that model because there's a general sort of education in science. You get to pick some electives, but in general, there's a backbone which is fixed. La Trobe Engineering, as well as the other universities here in Victoria and most universities in Australia, still use the 4-year undergraduate Bachelor of Engineering. And there's reasons for it. It's because of the accreditation umbrella that sits over that from Engineers Australia. So most people don't want to tamper with that. And I'm telling you this because you'll understand why we have this 1-year accelerated masters in place to sort of complement what's being done on the market right now. So because engineering is a 4-year degree, you'll notice that your 4th year in engineering is an honors year, right? And that also has a bit of a historical connotation, which you should understand. Science is a 3-year degree. And if you do well enough in your 3rd year, you get what's called honors offer. And you do a 4th year in science, you do honors. In engineering, that's automatic because engineering is a 4-year degree in Australia. So therefore, your final year is counted as your honors year. And that's why some of you will graduate with 1st class honors, which is an 80% average and above, 2nd class honors, 70% and above, and then 3rd class honors, which I think is 60 to 70% on that. So those are all important pieces of information to explain to you why we're even able to offer you a 1-year master's degree, i.e. accelerated master's degree. It's not that we're taking 2 years of content and compressing it into 12 months. I know that some of you panicked around that. It's actually offering you a 12-month version of that 2-year version, because you've already completed 4 years of undergraduate education in Australia at La Trobe University or at an accredited equivalent institution internationally. There are countries which are part of the Washington Accord. I'm not going to go into those right now, but you can look that up online. But if you've graduated from countries like the US, the UK, mainland Europe, and certain other countries, that means you have an equivalency standing according to this Washington Accord, and therefore degrees are compatible and they meet certain benchmarks and certain quality. So quality is very, very important. So what that means for you here is, if you've graduated from La Trobe University, or you're going to graduate from La Trobe University, like most of you are, and I know that we have one person here who's graduated in the States, it means you are eligible to undertake a 2-year master's degree in 12 months. And the way that we're doing that at La Trobe University at the moment is that we're going to give you advanced standing for 12 of the 24 months in our master's degrees, right? So you come in, we give you advanced standing based on what you studied earlier on, and therefore you complete a master's in 12 months. So it's very, very simple, but I needed to tell you how this has all come about in the background so that you understand that we're not just pulling things out of a hat, that we're actually thinking about the process thoroughly. We're thinking about accreditation, we're thinking about equivalency, we're thinking about Engineers Australia competencies, and all of that stuff is very, very thoroughly thought out. And so what we've come to here is, and first of all, why are we even doing this at the moment? There are a lot of subjects which are offered at our master's degrees that are very relevant to a particular industry. And many students asked us, I want to specialize in this particular area. I want to do this, or I want to do that. So we wanted to be able to offer a little bit more on top of the 4 years of undergraduate education. So that's one reason. The second reason is that we have a lot of people in industry, some of our previous undergraduate graduates that have gone out and working companies, recently gone into companies, that are looking to upskill. Now, we're talking about upskilling and not undertaking 100 subjects, because people don't have time for that. We're talking about a few subjects that will help them in their particular jobs. So we have that particular segment as well. So the third, and I guess the primary driver of this, is COVID as well. So with COVID coming along, the government's very keen to upskill the workforce, to use this online world that we live in now to upskill as many young people as possible, but also senior people, to give them an opportunity to take certain skills, requalify, further expand their knowledge in a particular domain, and so on. And the greatest thing about this moment that we're living in right now, the fact that COVID has disrupted us in the way it has, is that we are now more flexible than we've ever been before. And many of you who are currently studying with us would know how flexible we've had to be. Not everything has been perfect, but I think for most parts, you agree that staff members have made a huge effort to make this online world work for all of us. Now, that gives us certain advantages. Of course, there are downturns to that as well, and there are ways that we can overcome them, but there are advantages to that. That means that it doesn't matter whether you're stuck in Mildura or working in a company in Southeast Melbourne. You don't always have to come on campus physically. It gives academic staff members flexibility as well. So we want to capitalize on this. And what we're saying is, let's work together to work on these master's degrees that will give you what you want, right? In the flexibility that you would want to have it, with the flexibility that we can provide. So it's a partnership of all sorts here to give you the knowledge that you want. And the 4 areas that we're focusing on is the areas that we have expertise in: the civil engineering, electronics, manufacturing, and telecommunications and networks. So those are the 4 master's degrees that we have at the moment. There is a 5th one, which is in the pipeline. So for those of you that are, say, 2nd or 3rd year at the moment, there will be a Master's of Construction Management, which is currently being brought online, but it won't be available from the 1st of March of 2021. Very likely might be available in 2022, or maybe even the second half of the year, but that's not what we're going to talk about here today. I just want to give you a better idea of what's available in the near future. Okay, so let's get into what this is all about and how is it actually going to work. So I'm going to zoom in on this part here so you can understand what happens. So like all other degrees, you have to apply. There's no guarantee that you enter, but there is an important structure in this particular degree. So first of all, when you apply for any of these 4 master's degrees, you go through the normal channels that you apply for if you applied for a master's degree. The difference in this one here is that there's an actual interview involved. So first of all, you got to meet all the entry requirements, and the entry requirements you'll find online. But the most important entry requirement is that you have an undergraduate engineering qualification in an Australian university, La Trobe University, Australian University, or a Washington Accord equivalent university degree from around the world. The second thing that's going to happen is once you apply, I will be given an email. I'll get an email from Central, from the admissions team, and they'll say person X has applied. You will then sit an interview. Now, this is very different to how other master's degrees are conducted in Australia. And there's a big reason for it. We want to treat these accelerated master's degrees as something as boutique, right? And I say that in the most meaningful way. Boutique, quality over quantity, and personalized. Personalization of your experience at La Trobe University is one of the most important things that I'm personally working on, and which Hossam very much adheres to as well, which is providing you an amazing experience, getting you to learn something, but not losing track that you're just another number. We don't just want another number. We want people with names, people that we know, people that we communicate with, because as you've realized in your undergraduate studies, it's those personal relationships that we've been able to build that have allowed us to place students in companies, get those jobs, provide you with the career coaching, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm glad to see so many of you here on the call that we've been able to help in that way. We can't help everyone, there's no guarantee, but we work around the clock to ensure that we provide the best possible service to students, and far beyond what the university sort of guarantees as part of your experience. And you know that we go around to do that. So the engineering interview that we will conduct is specifically there so that we know who is applying and that we can check how well is this student positioned for success. Now, we don't want to say, no, you're not good enough, you can't go forward, but we want to be able to analyze your capacity as an engineer. So I'll give you the scenario. If you're applying directly from an undergraduate engineering degree, there's a very good chance that we will know you quite well, especially if you've gone through Will with us. And that means we know your capacity, right? If you're coming in as an engineer who's worked in industry for 4 or 5 years and you've been working in Albury Wodonga, for example, and you want to upskill, I don't know you. The engineering department doesn't know you. And that means we have to interview you regardless of what your experience is, so that we can best position you in our structure to guarantee success as you go forth. And then you have students that are going to come in from other institutions, which again, we don't know. So the engineering interview is something that everyone will go through, regardless of whether you come from somewhere else, whether you've come through undergraduate here. For some of you, it'll be a very straightforward interview. So for some of you, it might be a little bit more detailed, but it's all about getting to know you rather than to assess you and see you're amazing or you're not amazing. So once you get through that interview stage, what we'll do then is rank you. So you will be ranked. And now I have to say this, only 25 students, a maximum of 25 students will enter what we call the work integrated learning track, which is this top half that you see. And then you have this bottom half. So let me explain what they are and why they're set up that way. If you enter the work integrated learning track, that means you sit the interview and I rank you in this particular table here as someone who's competent at that level. You are guaranteed a 6-month industry placement, okay? There is an actual guarantee for that placement. If you don't get through this interview stage with adequate, let's say, results or assessment, that doesn't mean that we're rejecting you, saying we're not going to offer you the opportunity. What we're saying is, okay, you need a little bit more time to develop yourself. And I'll explain how we're going to do that. But the top half is guaranteeing you a 6-month industry placement. The bottom half can still guarantee it, but you're going to have to sit a second interview after you complete 4 units at the master's level. Okay, so very, very simple. So if you go to the top half, you go straight into 4 subjects of engineering, right, in the advanced engineering stream, and you then go into a 6-month industry placement. I'll explain how that works if you already have a job, right? But let me talk about the bottom half first, because that one is a little bit more detailed. So if you don't qualify in these top 25 students, you go into this professional development track. That means the first 4 subjects that you take will be heavily focused on ironing out the weaknesses that you have. Most students don't have a problem with technical difficulties. You learn on the job. The vast majority of students have a problem with the enterprise skills, with the communication skills, right? With your ability to answer questions in interviews, right? With your ability to present, with your ability to work in teams, with your ability to understand how businesses work and what your role in businesses is. So a lot of these what we call soft skills, I call enterprise skills, are missing. They're either missing completely, or they're missing partially, or they need to be ironed out. They need to be really, really, let's say, polished. And that's what we're going to do. So in these 4 subjects that you undertake in the first semester, if you enter this particular track, the bottom half, we will work with you to iron out these particular skills. And because I've been doing this for a very, very long time, I'm in regular touch with companies, and companies feed that information back to us, and they say, look, yeah, the CV looks good. It looks like they've got the right skills, but we just can't see them fitting into our workplace culture. And that's a terrible thing to get rejected on, because it seems like the easiest thing to iron out. But the challenge here is that how do we emphasize that more and more for undergraduate students so that you don't have this fault? So if you haven't, it doesn't matter. We're going to work with you to make that happen. And how are we going to do that? So first of all, when you enter these accelerated master's degrees, there are a couple of boutique things that we're going to offer. Every single student that enters gets an industry mentor, right? From day one, we will assign you an industry mentor. This is why this interview is so important. I want to get to know who you are, what you're aspiring to be, what direction you want to go in, what you like, what you don't like, what you're good at, what you're not good at. That helps me find an adequate industry mentor for you that can help you see beyond the 12 months of your master's degree, help you by giving you some directions, help you by polishing some of your skills, and help you by being that big brother, big sister from industry that can give you some of that inside knowledge that will help you climb the ranks in terms of employability. Because our goal is to make sure that La Trobe University engineering students are the most employable students in industry. Right now, we're equally first in Victoria, which is fantastic, but we don't want to be equally first, we want to be first. And to be first, it means that we have to work together, students and staff and industry, our alumni, and all of our networks to make sure that you guys come out on the other end, polished and ready to go. So everyone gets an industry mentor, that's number one. The second thing is every single student will receive executive career coaching. What does that actually mean? So we've been doing this for a very, very long time. Some of you have had that coaching from me personally, some of you have not, but we're now going to formalize this process. And that means every single student in these master's degrees here will receive that coaching. That means you will have an X amount of hours per month in which you'll meet with someone from the department, probably me, but it could be someone else as well. And we'll be sitting down and we'll be going through what you're doing, how you're doing it, how you're working. That person will also communicate to your industry mentor. You'll have these joint sessions. They're all designed to emphasize employability skills, enterprise skills to make you more employable, right? And it's a partnership. That means you can't expect the career coach or the industry mentor to do any work for you. That's not what they're there for. It means you do the work, they do the advising. It's bi-directional, so you need to communicate to your mentor as much as your mentor communicates to you, an executive coach and so on. But it's a partnership, and that partnership drives success. Now, how do we know that this all works, and why do we want to do this? I've been doing this for a very, very long time, and I know that the formula works. I haven't had any student in the past that I've worked with closely that I haven't been able to get a job at some point in their career, right? But it really comes back to you. You got to work. You got to hustle. You have to put the time in. We do the fine tuning. And with that fine tuning, you come out on the other end. We use our networks and you get jobs. And some of you have already got jobs, and some of you are already placed in industry. Some of you are about to commence your work integrated learning placements, etc., etc. So there's no cap on this bottom half. And then you will sit, after you complete those 4 subjects, you will sit what we call it's basically a re-interview, re-evaluation of your skills. If you satisfy the conditions of that particular interview, if we're happy, we will take you and place you in front of the company and push you out to industry. That's the way we're going to do it. Now, if you don't satisfy that interview, if we feel like, okay, you still need a little bit of work, it doesn't mean it's the end of the world for you guys, because some people take 10 years to fruition to come to this level, and some people take a few months. We all have different skills that we bring to the table, so we got to work with you. What we're going to offer you instead as a compromise is something that's equivalent, really, really valuable. That means the company that we would have placed you in is going to give us an industry project. And this industry project will be a real industry project. You will even have occasional industry supervision. So think of it as completing your 6 months work integrated learning placement within the confines of the university while working on the project for that particular company. So that means you're still getting the industry experience, but the company doesn't have the resources to take you into the four walls of the organization. And that means that you're also opening up the door to getting a job in that company. Because if you perform well in your major industry project, you still have that pathway to get into the company. We won't have a third interview. In fact, that third interview will be your job interview rather than us interviewing you. So what I'm appealing to you here is that whether you get that work integrated learning placement in the bottom half after your second interview or don't, you still have a third chance. And the third chance is if you do well in your industry project, the company is going to take you on. Companies like people who put effort in towards their goals, delivering value for them, and there's always a pathway there. And the worst case scenario is if that company still doesn't take you on, which is always a possibility, there's no guarantees, you would have taken a 6-month industry project, worked on a commercial project, a product or service or whatever that might be, and delivered it. So that on your CV versus just a bland in-house project plays a big role in you getting a job. So that's the options that we have on the table. And the upper half here is really straightforward because you complete 4 advanced engineering subjects and then you go straight into a company. We negotiate which companies, we look at what you want, we look at what we have, and we work together to get you there. So that's how the whole process will work. But let's talk a little bit about the actual content, because some of you have questions. Okay, what's available? What am I going to study? You know, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going to pass all of this information to you, and I don't want to go through all of the courses here with you, but there's a lot available, right? It's really up to you what you're going to do and how you're going to utilize it, et cetera, et cetera. But there's a lot of subjects available here for you. There are some common subjects. There are some specialized subjects, depending on which stream you go into, depending on what you do. It's all available. The entry into this can be in first semester, it can be in second semester, it doesn't really matter. And that's why you have these rotational options here of where you enter and where you finish. And work integrated learning, thankfully, is also now offered in first semester and second semester. So that gives us a lot of flexibility. It also means that we're not pushing all the students out to the company during the same period, because companies also have limits in how many students they can take during a certain period of time. It also means that we have, you know, supply-demand balance that we can negotiate along the way. You can see someone's commenting here. Abby has to go. Okay, no worries, Abby, sorry. So let's go a little bit further here. I'm just going to explain to you if you haven't had a chance already. So these are just some of the companies that we're currently working with. We didn't put all of them up here because obviously it'll take up the whole A4 sheet. But we have companies all over the state, and I spoke to a few of you earlier on. Yesterday, I was on site. I drove all the way to Hastings, which is on the peninsula, but on the eastern side of the peninsula. And I was collaborating with a company, which I'll actually show you, just to give you an idea of the sort of relationships that we're building. I'm just going to stop sharing that and show you this. Okay, so this is a new company that's coming aboard, Aspire Solar Pool Panels. So this is an Australian company which has innovated and created a new product that's being exported to the United States. It's a very, very innovative heating system for water. So it involves structural, mechanical, injection molding, production, you know, the whole lot. It's a whole product development. So these companies are coming on board and they're asking for students. So we need more students. We've never had a bigger need for students. So you guys are sort of in the right pipeline. And I'm also appealing to you while you're on this call that if you have colleagues from other universities that want to study, that want to get a job, we have more companies than we have students. It's a very good problem to have, but it's also something that keeps me awake at nighttime because I don't have enough students to place into companies. So I can't exactly go out there preaching and selling if I don't have the product. And the product is you. You're the product. You're the product that we serve to industry. We work very closely with them, but we keep building up new relationships. So those relationships are essentially what make this master's degree very, very unique and very, very valuable for you guys. And that's why I just wanted to show you that. I'll send you this, guys, I'll send you this information later on so you can see who's involved and what they're doing. We have some undergraduate student success stories here as well. I won't go into them. I've already explained a lot of this stuff. I'll send you through. Obviously, if you get into the work integrated learning pathway, there's a guaranteed $10,000 scholarship. Some of you have already experienced this in our undergraduate degrees right now. Some of you are about to go through it. Some of you might have gotten more than $10,000 scholarship. Some of you might be on casual salaries. There's a lot of flexibility there. But here's the important thing in all of that, that you can negotiate your own work integrated learning placement. So we have companies that we work with. We have companies that will provide you and match you up with. But if you have a company lined up, or if you're working in a company already, which some of you are and will be, then you have an advantage. So let me explain how that's going to work. So there are a couple of scenarios. You are an undergraduate student. You've completed your studies, right? Or maybe you're completing your work integrated learning placement. If you convert your work integrated learning placement into a full-time job, which is very likely because about 85 to 87% of our students convert their work integrated learning placements into full-time jobs. Sometimes they're casual jobs which end up being full-time, like Zane Roma on call here. It's very likely to happen because of COVID. And other times it's straight into a graduate role of some sort. The advantage that you have now, and I'm going to explain the scenarios so you can really understand where you are and how you fit into this structure. So if you're a current fourth year student at Trobe University and you are about to start your work integrated learning, right? You can, after you complete that work integrated learning, come back, finish your degree, and roll into a master's degree with us, right? And you might have a casual or full-time job with the company where you're completing your will. While you're working in that company, you can undertake this master's degree as well, right? Because of the flexibility that we're providing, we will be able to offer you the master's degree while you're in the company, right? So you complete your 4 units, you can do it casually. Hassan mentioned earlier that we have a student who's currently in a company. He wants to take 2 subjects and will A in semester 1, and then will B in semester 2 and 2 more subjects. Very much possible. We're going to be super flexible, right? There are certain things that we can't do, but we're going to be very super flexible in this matter. So if you're in a company already, if you're working in a company right now, then your work integrated learning placement in second half of the year will be whatever you're doing on the job. So how does that actually work? So rather than saying to you, okay, John, you work in, let's say, Thales in the defense industry, right? And you're applying for this master's because you want to upskill. You have the option of saying, I want to do my work integrated learning in the company that I'm currently working in. Or if you don't want to stay in that company, which I've had one student inquire about, they want to change direction, they want to go into a different company, then you will obviously have to quit that particular job and then we'll place you into another company. But there's 2 different distinct scenarios. So let's deal with the first one. If you're in the company already, then what we're going to do with you is we will speak to the company and you will do your research project as part of work integrated learning on something that you're already working on. So there's a huge advantage in that. The advantage is you already know the company. You already know the processes. You already know what you're working on. So converting that knowledge into something that we call a capstone thesis, a project, a thesis on the project, is very much simpler than just going into a new company. You already have the domain knowledge. So the expectation is that you'll produce a very good piece of work. The advantage is that you're working in a domain that you're very familiar with, and you're formalizing that knowledge into a report. The value proposition to the company is that you are getting credit towards your master's degree. So you're upskilling, you're learning how to do competitive research for a particular product or a service or whatever that might be. And the final report that you produce as part of your work integrated learning is something that has to be of value to the company that you're in. It's not, the point isn't to just generate a report for the sake of a report. It's to actually do concrete research that has value, intrinsic value to the company that you're working in. That company may decide to commercialize something as a result of your research. They might decide to improve a process as a result of your research. They might launch a new product as a result of your research. Whatever the case is, you're doing something that has meaning, and you're getting your experience, and you're getting the credit, and you're satisfying all the Engineers Australia competencies that you have. So that's one scenario. The second scenario is you don't have a company, you're coming through the pipeline, we match you with a company, and then you go off and do the same particular experience. So we have a lot of flexibility in how we do this, horses for courses, but each one of them will come with the scholarship. Now, if you're working in the company already, there's probably a likelihood that you're getting paid already, full-time salary. Also, keep this in mind. A lot of companies are willing to sponsor your postgraduate studies. Maybe not the 100%, maybe 50%, maybe 25%. But most companies have a budget allocated to allow their employees to upskill. You have to negotiate. If you're working in a company right now, you should negotiate that with management. And there's tax benefits for companies doing that as well, because investing in educating their employees is something that's tax deductible, and they get various benefits. They might sign you on an additional contract. We can talk about that another time as the specific questions come in. I don't want to deal with every situation right now because it might not be interesting to everyone, but keep that in mind. Companies invest in employees. We've had this done before. It's going to be done again, especially now with COVID, especially now with the government wanting to upskill the workforce. There has never been a better time to get your particular master's degrees and upskilling, because after this, things will go back to, I'm not sure what normal will look like, but they'll go back to something that resembles what we had in the past. And all of these additional incentives might not be in place. So I'm appealing to you, take advantage of it, take full advantage of it, upskill, get a master's degree, get yourself a job. If you can do both at the same time, even better, because you can compensate some of the costs, and therefore it's going to be highly valuable to your career. So lastly, I want to talk a little bit about scholarships. If you're an international student who's onshore here, you've completed your studies with us, there are various scholarships that are available to you here. If you're a domestic student, there are also some scholarships available. But if you're a domestic student, I'm going to talk about CSP, right? These are Commonwealth supported places. And I know some of you probably are not familiar with the terminology, so I'll explain how that works. If you're an Australian citizen, right, you are being actually sponsored by the government to go to university. I know perhaps you don't maybe understand how that works, but I'll briefly explain. Your tuition fee is subsidized by the Australian government. You have what's called HECS or HELP, I forget what it's called these days, which is a student loan that is pegged to inflation, right, 2%. And so therefore your tuition is being compensated by the government, but you're also getting this helpline, which means that you don't have to pay up front. You pay after you get employed. There's a certain threshold once you get a job. And that's one of the greatest things about Australia. Now, what happens when you go to your master's degree? Well, there are less Commonwealth supported places at the master's level than there are at the undergraduate level. And there's a reason for it. A lot of people get university education in Australia, which is fantastic. But the government cannot subsidize everyone's education to that level. At least that's what they tell us. And that means they don't have sufficient funding. So there are somewhat limited places in comparison to undergraduate, but there are plenty of CSP places available. What does that mean for you if you're an undergraduate student, you're an Australian citizen or permanent resident in that particular case? You are applying for these master's degrees. There is an actual form that you fill in. There's a CSP available places, and therefore the university makes an assessment on who gets the CSP places available. So what does that mean financially for you? If you get one of these CSP places available, it's pretty much the same scenario as it was in undergraduate. You get this HECS help, and you're only paying a fraction of what the actual subjects cost. If you're not a CSP supported place, then you're paying the full fee of a particular subject, of a particular course. Now, we have tried to, for students that don't get the CSP places, we have tried to subsidize in some ways with these scholarships, these work integrated learning scholarships that reduce the overall cost by working with you to see whether the companies that you might be in are willing to subsidize some of your costs by paying partly for your degrees or giving a full scholarship or whatever that might be. But there are plenty of options available, right, for you. You need to go and apply, and you need to figure out which option is going to be the best fit for you and how that's going to pan out. So I just wanted to briefly explain about those Commonwealth supported places and how they're going to work. And that basically concludes my short presentation about the master's degrees, how they're going to work, the details, etc. I'm more than open to questions now, which you might have, and how that might move forward. So, all right, I can see a question here from Abdullah. So Abdullah, I'm going to give you the floor first.
Thank you, Doctor. My question is, with this master degree, can a student continue PhD if he take this degree?
Yeah, absolutely. So the short answer is absolutely, you can. And the greatest thing about doing it this way is that what you end up doing researching. So if you want to do a PhD after your master's, you can do it two ways. Way number one is that for your actual project, you can choose to work with, say, Hossam. Hossam might say, I have a project and I'm working with an industry partner. Come and work with me. You make that decision. So your pathway is being optimized for research. Now, this is exactly why I'm going to have that interview with every single student, because I want to ascertain where you are going. What do you want to do? What don't you want to do? So I can give you the best advice. So I can give you the advisors, I can give you the coaches that will optimize your career pathway. So if you come in and say, look, I want to do this, but I actually want to go and do a PhD, preferably a PhD that has close touch point with industry, we'll optimize your pathway so you can achieve that. If you say, I'm not sure, but I want to keep that option open, then that's okay as well. Because even if you do this work integrated learning placement with industry, don't forget, as part of work integrated learning, you are generating a full thesis. You are doing a capstone experience. So rather than sitting in a lab or sitting in a classroom, you're going out to the industry, to the company, and you're doing the research within the confines of the company. That means you are doing day-to-day engineering tasks, but those tasks are also transpiring into a thesis, which is of equivalence of AQF 9. So AQF 9 are the standards that we have here in Australia, which benchmark all of the studies at that particular level to a national level. So Engineers Australia looks at this closely. It's a quality assurance method. And therefore, when you finish your master's, you apply for a PhD, you will put forward that thesis that you do in your will as your master's thesis. And that will be assessed by the committees here at Trobe University or another university in the equivalent standing as a master's degree would have been had it not been this accelerated version. So that's a little bit longer explanation of what the options are, but hopefully I've caught everything that you sort of had an interest in there.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
No, pleasure. All right, anyone else? Questions? Okay, Yasser.
Yes. So since I already been accepted in the other degree, the normal civil masters, how would the process be for me if I want to transition to this one?
Very simple.
I've never done this before.
There's a formal and informal way to do this. I think the formal, so by the way, the application for those masters and these masters, there's no difference, right? It's the same masters. The difference here is that there's an interview associated when you go through this pathway. So I can arrange that interview with you irrespective of your application over there. And we can still give you the advanced standing for what you've applied for already. So rather than you withdrawing your application and reapplying and saying, I'm now going here, it's just a waste of time. Leave it as it is. I will arrange an interview with you sometime, either December, probably December, and we'll go from there. It's plain and simple. So,
perfect.
All right, thank you. All right, anyone else? Is
so yesterday I was talking to someone at the event last night.
Yep.
And they suggested doing 2 masters. What are your thoughts on doing 2 accelerated masters?
My thoughts are, can you handle the work? Well, are we talking about in parallel or?
No, like a one after the other. Not in parallel, gosh.
Yeah, look, well, absolutely. I think, look, it's really, I would say, do one. And then if you feel like you want to top your knowledge up further and what's come out is perhaps inadequate for you, then you can do a second one. From a sales perspective, if I was just here to make money, I would say, yeah, do 5. But but remember, the most important thing here is this is not about numbers here, right? And this is why I'm taking this very much as a boutique approach, because I need to guarantee your career success personally, and also on behalf of the department, on behalf of the university. So I would be foolish to say, yeah, just enroll in 5 master's degrees because we're getting money. That's not the goal. The goal is to make you employable, to make sure that you have career success, because your career success after you graduate from La Trobe reflects on what we do here. So you will speak highly about your experience if you do well, if you get a job or get a PhD or whatever that might be. And if we just keep, circulating you in the system for a long time, that's not perhaps the best option, but it is an option. And certainly if the 2 master's degrees are compatible to each other, you might even be able to knock that over in some, other unique way. But my advice would be pick one that you feel is the most probable for you to be able to utilize in industry or whatever area that you might go in, Sarah. And then after that, or halfway through that, you'll see how things are unfolding and you might say, yeah, I want to do one more. So that's perfectly fine. I know a lot of people that have 2 masters. I know some people that have 3 masters, but normally they've done those masters by going out, working for a year or 2, and then coming back, doing another master's, rather than doing undergraduate, master's, and then getting a job. It's very important that you sort of know where you're going. So we can have a separate conversation on that particular topic, Sarah.
I mean, yeah, that'd be great.
More than happy to have that conversation with you outside of this particular session.
Cool, thank you.
Hey, no worries. All right, good questions. Anyone else? Dasun, unmute.
Already?
I think Dasun was speaking, but he needs to unmute his microphone. Sorry. Al Hamam, I know you also have a question, so I think Dasun was speaking, but he was on mute.
Yeah, I just want to ask a small question regarding, let's just say, since I'm securing a wheel placement in 4th year, so let's just say if I work for, after the wheel program, if I secure a work placement in the company,
yep.
You said the program is very flexible, so we can sort of choose 1 or 2 subjects, depends on the criteria.
Exactly.
So will that be accessible for international students as well? Because I know that international students have a problem where we have to fully focus on studies, like if we started a course. So will that be flexible for international students?
Absolutely. So I think what you're referring to is getting a job. So first of all, if you get a job, right? So you have a visa, right? So if you get a job, you're on a different visa than the student visa. So the student visa limits you on how many hours you can work, right? So what's going to happen here is, I know there's 2 scenarios. One is you're transitioning from one degree into another degree. So you're staying on the student visa. That's option 1.
Yeah.
The second option is you finish your degree, you get a job, you get a different visa, and then you enroll. There's 2 scenarios. Hard to sort of explain both of them in parallel now because we don't really know what's going to happen in this particular case. But let's deal with one at a time. And I may not have all the answers for you because I'm not an expert on visas. But if you go and you finish, so that's when you're going to finish your undergraduate work integrated learning. Let's say you're starting in February. So you're probably going to finish it July, August, somewhere there next year. At that point, you're finishing the studies, so your visa would have been extended until that particular point. They're pretty tight on the visa extensions. They tell you, you're finishing this date, your visa finishes that date. You then have to apply for something else. After a few months in the company, you're going to get a good feeling for whether the company wants you to stay on or not, right? And I also noticed, because I'm going to come and see you in the company several times. I speak to your managers, I speak to the CEOs, the actual management of the company, but I also speak to your line managers to get a feeling for, is Dasun going to get a full-time job after this? Of course, many of them won't say that, but you can get the feeling. If you've done this long enough, you sort of know if you're going the right direction or not. But as time goes on, you'll get a tap on the shoulder from one of the staff members there, and they'll say, Dasun, you've been doing a very good job. We really want to keep you. That's the case with most of our students, because you spend 6 months in a company. That's 6 months of training on the job, right? It's very rare for a company to say, nah, you were useless, go away, right? Regardless of whether you were good or not. On average, it takes 2 to 3 months for you to get your head around in the company and deliver value to the company. That's from my personal experience. After 3 months, you're delivering value, constantly delivering value, and you're delivering the value for a fraction of the cost that a normal employee does. So that gives the company time to train you up. And when you finish, they're going to say, how about you hang on here and why don't you come onto a grad role or a casual role, depending on what your situation is. A lot of our students still have subjects to complete, so they have to go casual. But if you go full-time, they're going to give you a full-time job. Your visa status changes, and then you're applying for a master's degree with a different visa status, and then you have no problems whatsoever. We're going to be flexible on option 1 and option 2. It doesn't really matter. But we're also going to try and work with you to figure out what's best for you in terms of your visa. Student visas are very, say, tightly controlled, because we have 250,000 international students post-COVID in Melbourne. And managing all of that is a nightmare. So the government takes that very, very seriously. So let's work together and see what the scenario is. But you're at CMP Consulting, right? So yeah. So I'm pretty sure if you do a good job, they're going to keep you, because they were very clear about we're looking to recruit, not just take working a grad learning student. So work through that, do a good job, which I'm sure you will. And then let's work on doing this. And by the way, in CMP Consulting, we have a very good relationship with them as well. So they're probably going to want to send you back to do some additional training part-time. You can do one subject a semester if you want to. I mean, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
It's up to you, because the subjects are flexible, because a lot of the stuff is going to be online. We're going to try and deliver the labs for people that are in industry in block mode, maybe even on weekends. Like, we're going to work to be flexible. The university is going to be more flexible next year. We're going to be more flexible. There's limits to how flexible we can be. But if you're in a company, we're going to try and fit around you to make sure that you have access to that information. The days of, lectures run 9 o'clock this time, if you're not there, it's the end of the world. They're gone, right? If you haven't realized that, if you're a lecturer who does it that way, you're probably going to be gone rather than the students. But we're going to be super flexible, so you'll have all those options available to you.
Okay, thanks very much.
No worries. Thanks, Dasun. Al-Hamam, you were next. Sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm wondering why the engineering management is not one of the accelerated options.
Very good question. I knew someone was going to ask this question. So
Yes.
the engineering management degree it's not a degree that we control in engineering. So you guys don't get to see all this back end. And to be honest, we don't want you to see it, because we want the front end to look nice and you guys have a good experience. But on the back end, courses are managed by different departments, by different schools, by different colleges. So the Masters of Engineering Management is actually managed by the School of Business, right? The Business School of Trobe University, which is the Ask College. So we have less sway over them than we have over us over here. But that being said, this is something that Hossam and I will work on in the meantime here. Maybe Hossam wants to add a few comments on. By the way, guys, this is not to brag, but we got this up and running in record time. You probably don't know, but universities take a very long time to approve things. And we try not to, swamp you with that crappy information, but it takes a long time to get things approved. And Hossam and I worked very, very hard to push this through as quickly as possible to make sure that we capture the audience here as well. So, it's not a consolation prize to say, okay, yeah, it's good job. But to get these 4 pushed through, it took a lot of work and a lot of paperwork and a lot of approvals at different college levels to make sure that it would be in line with what Engineers Australia wants, what the AQF standards are and all of that. So we got that done, but we certainly have the Engineering Masters Management degree on our radar as well. So Hossam, maybe you want to say a few words about that.
I don't know. I want to ask you first, Al-Hamam, what are you studying now? Are you studying undergraduate or you are studying? What are you doing?
I just completed my industrial engineering. So
You just completed your industrial engineering.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm
now
working
you,
in MTM. So
okay. And are you international students or?
yes, I'm international.
Okay. So
Study.
you are working now,
Yeah.
and what I can say, your visa now is work visa or study visa or
Still student visa.
still a student visa, but you are working with a company anyway.
Yes, I'm working.
So let me tell you something. I mean, the problem, as exactly Eddie said, with Master of Engineering Management, it is not managed by us. It is managed by different school, by different college.
Yes.
And something else also, because it is managed by different school, different college, and they are not the engineering college, so this master doesn't have accreditation.
Right.
Okay, so it is a little bit question mark, okay, here. Although still, I mean, some people who are taking this master, I think they should apply and go to Engineer Australia and do things and something like that to get their degree and their experience recognized by Engineers Australia. So anyway, it is a little bit tricky, but we are trying to, I mean, solve this problem. But in your case, I think the most suitable master for you, if you want really to get into our accelerated master, is the manufacturing one, because this is very closer to the industrial degrees that you have, and it can give you the same things. And actually, as Eddie was telling all of you, the purpose of this interview is to really see what can help you. So, I mean, now you are saying that, okay, maybe I want to focus more on management. And this is maybe why you were talking about engineering management, for example. If you tell this to Eddie and then you see the number of the subjects that we have and think we still have also many management subjects for the master. So you might find Eddie already selecting the management subjects, which is really suits what you want and give you the skills that you want. And you have the well, which is working for the industry. Still, it might have some management component in your well or even your research. But at the end, you are going to get master called master in manufacturing, okay?
Yeah.
But
I'll add a few more words to that, Al-Hamam. So there's another challenge here, and that is because this is a master's degree, which is run by us and the school. So the School of Business is let's say, the owner. We own it 50-50, but someone has to manage it, and they manage it. So what that means is because you're entering from an undergraduate degree, if you were entering one of these accelerated programs, one of the 4 that we have, we give you 12 months advanced standing. Yeah. Now, if we were to give you 12 months advanced standing on the Masters of Engineering Management, first of all, we don't have the authority to do that. We can give you advanced standing for the engineering subject because that's the ones we run. But we wouldn't be able to, from this end, give you advanced standing for the management subjects on that end. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Now, that being said, we are going to have some conversations with the guys over there to see how that would be possible. But the bigger question is, because it's being managed by 2 entities, each entity earns from its half of the subjects, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So if we say, okay, we're going to give you advanced standing for all the engineering subjects, we wouldn't benefit from that at all. The School of Business would benefit from that at all. For you, it doesn't matter because you just want the product, right? And for us, it doesn't matter either. But what matters is what kind of masters is it going to be in that accelerated form. So we're going to have a chat to the business school to say, can we do a half-half type option? That you do the 4 subject and work integrated learning, but you're doing 2 subjects from management, 2 subjects from engineering. That might be an option. We're going to work on that, but I don't want to guarantee you anything at this stage moving forward because they might not be open to the idea. Often we hit roadblocks from other parts of the university here. But Hossam has laid out a pretty good option there, and that is the manufacturing masters, if that's something that's interesting to you. As part of the master's degree, you get to, that's why we have this interview. You guys get to pick and choose a little bit what you're going to do. We're going to be very flexible. So if you say, look, I'm heading down this pathway, I want to learn more about management, I want to do this, we're going to work with you to give you on that, smorgasbord, the menu, we're going to give you more of that rather than the other stuff. It's really about tailoring it to your needs, but then most importantly, it's about tailoring your work integrated learning / project to management, right? So if you say, I want to go into this area, I want to do this, I might say, okay, well, which area of management? Are we talking about financial management? Are we talking about just classic project management? Are we talking about process management? Like which part do you want to be involved in? And then we tailor your final thesis project towards that. And we look at what tools you want to use, and we look at what the industry wants to use. We look at the company that you're in, what they would like to get out of you, and then we put it into action. So there's a title, right? There's 4 titles. There's the civil engineering, there's manufacturing, there's the electronics, there's the telecommunications. But what happens underneath that title, that's between us. And that's why I want to keep this a boutique program. If this program blows up to 1,000 students, we're not going to be able to do that. We're not going to be able to manage it. It's going to be a nightmare. So keep it small, quality, focus on the one-on-one relationships, and let's see what happens. We might be able to scale it a little bit more, but we certainly don't want to blow this thing up to have 1,000 students in there because it's accelerated. That's not our goal here, if that makes sense.
I think it's best fit for those who knows their pathway. Like, okay, well, I'm going into manufacturing, so I'll do manufacturing. For me, like, I still don't know where I'm going, but I feel like management is the best option that can suits me at this stage.
Yeah. And you're right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Because a lot of people, this is why I sort of said to Sarah before when she asked that question, you'll do 2 masters. You need to sort of get a feeling for life, right? Yeah. Where you're going, what you want to do. And this is why I'm going to put a big emphasis on giving you that industry mentor, giving you that career coaching, because a lot of students just keep going through the rounds. It's like business as usual. I finish 1 semester, finish 2nd semester, finish 3rd semester. I report back to my parents, mom, dad, I passed my degree. And it's like, oh, what happens now? Where do I go next? Where do I want to be? Am I going to make the right choice? Am I going to make the wrong choice? The good news is you never really make the wrong choice. And I'll explain why. Yeah. A good undergraduate engineering degree, even a master's degree, there are transferable skills. That's what you really got to work on, transferable skills. Yeah. Transferable skills don't just mean transferable from industry to industry. We're talking about transferable from generation to generation, right? Because technology is moving so fast. We can't keep up with what's going on everywhere. But we need to learn how to learn, because if we learn that properly, it doesn't matter what comes next. We're going to be able to adapt to it, apply it, change it, move with it. I sometimes worry and I get scared because when I was doing my PhD, my supervisor said to me, I used to be able to crunch these simulations back in my day. Now, the software is so complicated. There are so many options. I don't know how to do this anymore. But I know the underlying principles, right? First principles. I know how to apply them. I know how to problem solve. And I know how to engage the greater world of engineering. And then it's about applying the tools. It might be this software, that software. But having interaction with as many people as possible. For you, Al-Hamam, because you've been in industry already, just interact with as many people as possible from different walks of life to get a sense of what does their career path look like if I go in this direction, in that direction, or that direction. Yeah. If you have certain affinities towards management, that means you have good people skills, you're a good communicator, you have a bit of confidence, and you like doing that, then certainly follow that pathway. But I'll give you another fact. Most of you, whether you like it or not, are going to end up in management. And most people don't realize that, because you go into engineering because you want to solve problems, you want to tinker with things, you want to build things. You end up in management no matter what, because companies and universities will push you towards management when you have experience. Because you can manage 4 or 5 people underneath you, you can manage 50 people underneath you, you can manage processes. You can't run away from management, right? No matter what you do. And Hassan will probably tell you the same. When he started his career, he never envisaged running a department in finances and management of this, management of that. But now he has to do that. He has no choice. So either way you look at it, you're going to be in management. You can prepare for management better. And I think that's what you're thinking about, Al-Hamam, because you're thinking, I'm going in this direction. I can see some things unfolding. Perhaps I should be better prepared for that particular industry. And that's a good way to think, because you can't escape it no matter what you do.
Sure.
Al-Hamam, actually, I mean, for your case, if you already applied for engineering management, okay, give me your application numbers, and I will try to discuss your case with a course coordinator from the other side, from the business school, and we try to give you some advanced standing. Okay, but this will be just for your case. I mean case by case. So I'll say, okay, we have these students because you already graduated from La Trobe University. So this is why we say that, okay, this is our students, and we want to really give him some special case, some advanced standing, and we see what we can do for you.
All right. Thank you, Hassan.
No worries.
Thank you so much. I think Eddie, you're on mute.
Sorry. Michael's also joined us here late. Michael, you joined us late. I wasn't paying attention to the screen, so I'm not sure when you joined us or what you heard.
Just a moment ago. Sorry, Eddie. I thought it was at 1 o'clock, mate.
It's all good, mate. The presentation's recorded anyway, so I'll just I'll post that on LMS for everyone to be there. But any other questions, guys? So I know Darby's still here. I think Ad has also joined us. Darby, any questions from you, mate?
Yeah, I had one. So I've got the possibility of doing an internship on the design team at Integra next year.
Mm-hmm.
So I had that floated to me by my manager. So just might need to have a conversation with you about how to float this idea of a master's course to them as well.
Yeah, look, we can have a chat to Integra as well. I think you're completing your degree now, right? You're finished.
Yeah, just waiting on this and I should be finished.
Yeah. So for you, it would be very straightforward. Say, for example, you enrolled into one of the degrees here. Doesn't matter which one at this stage. Probably electronics engineering is one that you might go into, or manufacturing.
I was looking at the manufacturing.
The manufacturing one. So it will be very easy to negotiate with Integra. So I know Erica personally very well, and everyone else there. And we've got a lot of students in Integra. They would be very keen to keep you on for 6 months in a work integrated learning environment. So you could do your work integrated learning placement in semester 1 if you wanted to, right? You can start it right away and finish that, and then come and do your 4 subjects. It's not a problem at all. It doesn't, up to me, it doesn't really matter, especially if you have the company lined up already. And in the actual fact, that might work best for you, or you might go for the option of will A, will B, semester 1, semester 2, which Yasser was talking about on behalf of Hassan was talking about as well, which is if you're in a company already, they might keep you for X amount of time in the company under this work integrated learning A arrangement. And then as you transfer into semester 2, you're doing work integrated learning B. That means you can balance 2 subjects semester 1, 2 subjects semester 2, and you're doing work integrated learning essentially for the whole time, if you ask me. But it's up to you how much time you put towards it. So let's have a bit of a chat offline as well. There's a lot of options there. I think the most important thing for you is to have a chat to Integra and say, look, I'm looking about doing a master's. As part of the master's degree, it's 12 months. In the 12-month arrangement, I will have the ability to do 6 months work integrated learning. Are you happy to take me on for that? To be honest, I'm pretty 99% sure they're going to take you on, but you should get that confirmation. And then just apply, and then we'll do the customization of how you do that later on. That's the back end. We can be flexible on that end. As I said, with everyone else, especially if the numbers are relatively low, I can manage each student individually with a personal touch rather than having to deal with batches. That's too difficult for me. So,
yep, sounds good. Thank you.
No worries. All right, any other questions, guys? Who hasn't spoken yet? Mengezi hasn't spoken yet. Arthur has joined us late. Any questions, guys? Happy with what you're hearing? Feedback? Are you alive? Yes, I have one more question. Sure.
Yes. I want to ask about how are you going to assess us during the interview? Is it going to be based on our academic performance, or is it going to be on what we studied before?
Yeah. So how am I going to assess you? Really, I'm going to be assessing a couple of key things. One, I'm going to be playing the role of one of our industry partners. Because I sit in on a lot of the interviews and I speak to companies before and after, I know what they're looking for, roughly. And I know the sort of characteristics and traits that make someone employable or not. So plain and simply said, your communication skills are key. If your communication skills are poor, it's very likely that I'm going to assess you low. Because when I place you in front of that company, the company doesn't have the luxury of spending 2 weeks with you and figuring out you're amazing, but your speaking skills are just poor. The first thing they do is assess you on your ability to communicate. So that's number one. The second one that I'm going to look at is, what experience, what's your attitude like, right? Attitude is very important. Companies assess attitude on the spot. You know, from simple things like how you shake hands, if it's a face-to-face one, how you present yourself, what your body language is like, what examples you use, etc., etc. So think of it as a job interview type interview. I call it mock interview in many sense, because I'm trying to replicate that experience so that I can say, yep, if I place Yasser in front of the company is very likely going to take him on. If the 50-50 chance is there, and I'm leaning more towards a 50 yes, then you're going to be ranked in the top 25, because I'm guaranteeing you that placement. So if I don't think you're ready for it yet, and I guarantee you, I'm going to create a lot of work for myself, right? Extra work, which I already have a lot of work, but it could be extra work. So it's going to be a very easygoing interview. It's not going to be, you know, high stress environment. It's really to get to know you, to see how I can best help you. That's all.
Okay.
But if you can self-source your well, then it's okay. It's already proved that you already have a company, okay, which is really accepting you. So mainly the purpose of this interview is to see how your chemistry will go with the industry, how we can really match you with the industry. But if you are self-sourcing, you're well employer, then
exactly. So if you already have something lined up, you don't have to worry about.
My mate does. I don't. So
you'll be fine. I think most people on this call here are going to be fine. Can't guarantee anything, but I think most of you are going to be fine. I know most of you relatively well, so it should be perfectly fine. Yeah, just prepare for a normal interview. Up your communication skills. Make sure that you're ready for it, and that's it.
Okay.
All good.
Thank you.
No worries.
So now I'm already enrolled in the Masters of Engineering. I've done my first year already, and I'm doing 2 extra subjects during summertime, during the break, and then next year I'll pretty much be done. So you can see any benefit of me crossing over?
Hossam, you can answer this one, but you want to unmute your mic first.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it is too late. I mean, I understand that. Okay, some of are you international students or domestic or?
Domestic.
No. Domestic. Okay.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, because you have finished already 1 year. Okay. So
it's too late now, isn't it?
Yeah. Unfortunately.
Okay. Well, I guess it's depends what you mean by too late. So I know what you're saying, Magezi. So in reality, you're already doing the masters. You would have to redo some of the subjects, not the same subjects, but you have to. So you could transfer. We could give you a lot of advanced standing, right? But you still have to enroll in a couple of subjects.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So I guess the question is the cost benefit, and now I'm speaking to you because I don't want to lead you into something which is going to cost you more, which may or may not give you more advantage, right? If as I said, as a pure salesman, I would say, oh, absolutely, Magezi, transfer across, do the master's degree. But you got to look at the cost benefits here because you're already doing the master's. You got a couple of subjects left over. If you transferred across, you would have to do at least the work integrated learning, which is 4 more units, and you would have to do at least 2 more subjects on top of it. So that's 6 extra units on top of what you're doing already. So you would be doing what Sarah asked earlier, getting a second master's degree.
Okay. All right. So it's too late for me because I'm already part of the Commonwealth supported place as well. So
Excellent.
So that's okay. All right. No, thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right, I think that's pretty much it with all the questions, unless anyone else has any questions. But Michael, I know you missed the presentation, so you might have some questions after you watch the recording. And I've also sent everyone the link to the actual PDF. So please open that up and download it before I shut this chat down. It's just all the information compacted into an 8-page document to give you a better idea. I would also ask you not to make that PDF public at this stage, because it hasn't been finalized for public viewing yet through the Trobe. This is just to give you an idea of what I've presented in a more written format, so you have the information there as well. So just keep it to yourself. I know everyone on this call pretty well, so I trust you that you won't share that PDF with everyone. But yeah, please, if you know anyone else that's interested, you now know what this is about roughly. I think the value proposition is very, very good. To be honest, I wish this was around when I was around as a student, but it's not. And if you know anyone else that might be interested, please share the video link once I send it to you on LMS. And also, if you need someone that has to have a chat with them, happy to have that chat with them as well. And I'll probably organize a second info session, maybe in December, but might even do it in January at some time as well. So that's pretty much it. So no final questions, guys?
I had one actually.
All right,
so
all
go
right.
on.
It'll be a quick one. What's an IELTS score?
Okay. So this is, yeah, you don't need to worry about that. Good question. So this is an English proficiency test.
Okay.
International students would know here. You have to sit one. I forget. You have to have a 6 or 6.5 to get into a master's degree.
6 point. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is just an English level proficiency that you have to get in. And by the way, it doesn't matter what your IELTS is. Once I sit you down for that interview, I'll determine of my own what your IELTS rating is really. Because a lot of people get these 7s and they're not even a 6 in my view. But yeah, it's just an English rating. So.
No, sweet.
Yeah. Oh, good. Was there one more question by someone, Michael?
Yeah, Eddie. So is this an ongoing sort of way you're going to do the master's degrees? So
This is here to stay. Yeah, this is here to stay. So because you've still got a little bit of time to finish your undergraduate,
that's right.
Sarah, you guys will have this available to you when you finish. But because you're now going into third year, it's good to think about where you're going in the future, and that's why I want to make sure I socialize this concept well with everyone else. So
okay, that's great.
Technically, by the time you guys graduate from an undergraduate and masters from the Trobe, you will have 12 months of industry experience.
Yeah, it's unbeatable.
Yeah, it's really unreal. And some of you might actually have 18 months of work experience, right? So that is something that really, if that doesn't put you in the driver's seat to get any job that you want, then you're doing something wrong. Or the industry has collapsed completely, which is very unlikely. But the whole point is we want to bridge this gap between industry and academia. For some people, the 6 months undergraduate is enough. For other people, it's not. So if you can get that master's at a fraction of the cost and get more industry experience to put yourself in the driver's position, even better. And by the way, you don't have to work in the same company. You can do an undergraduate will with one company, and you can do a postgraduate will with another company to give you a bit of understanding of what's out there. So very much what Al-Hamam was saying before. I'm not too sure which direction I want to go in. I think I want management, but maybe that's not. So you get experience in one and the other. Or you can decide to stay in the one company which has more portfolios and switch from one area to another. That's also very common practice in graduate programs. They rotate you in different teams. So it's all about exposure, making sure that you become more employable and bridging that gap between industry and academia. That's our number one goal. We want to be known for employability. The Trobe engineering students get jobs. Never mind all the other fluff, research, blah, blah, blah. No insults to anyone, but my number one focus is my students need jobs. That's what everyone's enrolled here for. You didn't enroll to learn about the university's research, maybe one or two did, but most of you enrolled to get a really good job, to get a reasonable pay, to have career progression, and to do something that you love. And that's what we're here to do. We're going to make sure that you get those jobs. We're going to work through it. That's it.
Thank you.
All right.
A question about will. I've never had will before, so I'm just asking about it.
Yeah.
Is it going to be like a full-time thing when you go to like a company and work for full-time?
Full-time.
For 6 months?
Yeah, okay. It's full-time. Yes, sir. Absolutely. Yeah. There have been options where students worked part-time.
Yeah.
There have been students that did some sort of crazy arrangements where they worked 6 days a week. Some people worked three weeks on, 2 weeks off. Like we've done all sorts of arrangements, but the vast majority of them are full-time. So 36, 37 hours, sometimes 40 hours a week.
Yeah.
And they're in the company. So you're physically located at the company. There are some companies that will do a little bit of remote, a little bit of face-to-face, but 99% of them are on site, doing the job in the office, wherever it might be. That's the greatest thing about it. So
perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, you'll like it. Don't worry.
Yep. I already like the university.
Yeah, I'm glad that you're here. And if you know anyone else, bring them over. Just make sure they're quality students. We're all about quality here, not quantity. So
of course.
Make my job easier. Well, good. Lani, no questions from you?
I want to ask a question more directly to you without other people, because I have many options that I don't know what to do.
All right. We can have a separate chat.
Yep.
All right, guys. I think that's pretty much it. The only person that hasn't spoken is Dilip, right? Ate. I'm not sure if they're alive. Your microphone's not off and on. So, but anyways, if you have any questions, please reach out to me. I'll put this recording online for the people that weren't here. Thanks very much for spending your morning and early afternoon with me and Hossam, and hopefully that was useful and informative for you. And yeah, looking forward to seeing you in the master's courses and not in the master's courses. Regardless, I wish you the best of luck no matter what you pursue. So have a great day, guys.
Question.
Thank you, guys.
Are you gonna upload the recording somewhere?
Yes. I'm gonna put the recording up on YouTube, and I'll send you the link via LMS.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
All good. All right, guys. Take care. Have a great day.
Thanks, Eddie. You too.
Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys. See ya.